Today we're going to talk about staking tomatoes in 3 different ways. The first thing before I get started is on staking, these are sold as tomato cages, but again, I would avoid using these for tomatoes because they're going to get twice as big as this and fall over. I do use these for pepper plants, eggplants, sometimes a vining squash and a cucumber, and they make great trellises for it. But usually I grow everything in a larger container here, and you can tell, and this is a tomato plant growing in a larger container. So the best thing I do for it is to keep the foliage and the fruit off the ground. I use a concrete wire and I wrap it around to the diameter of my container, and I actually place it over the container and the tomato. And I just fit it in here where the tomato can grow around it. And as you can tell, it's going to support the foliage and the fruit. It will continue to grow. If I need to pick tomatoes, I make sure that the squares are large enough for me to go through, pick, groom if I need to. Also, if I need to, like a lot of people will go ahead and desucker tomatoes, to have a bushier plant at the top, which is okay to do if you want to do that. But again, I have plenty of room for access for actually picking tomatoes, pruning tomatoes, inspecting tomatoes for disease. So this is an easy way of doing it. And another good thing about this tomato cage in a taller thing is it will support it. If there's wind blowing or anything, it's going to support the weight of the tomato and hold it in place. With that being said, this is the first way that we are going to talk about staking a tomato. Another way of staking tomatoes is if we're having the plant growing in the ground like we have here. We still use the concrete wire round base that are really great and durable. I'm just going to place it over the top of the tomato. And here's the difference. I've got to have something to support this to keep it from falling over. So I actually hammer in 2 of these green stakes. These are tomato stakes you can buy at any farmer store, farmer livestock produce store. And again, I need something to support the weight of it. So I hammered these in, I have them here. I'm going to go ahead and just tie them with some jute string for support, and hopefully they'll hold up for the season. And again, I'm going to attach it in about 4 spots here. And I'm doing this to keep this from falling over. And as you can tell, this is a biodegradable jute that we actually use for tomatoes, for tying them. And usually 4 is enough for me to keep it stationary. So the tomato will continue to grow up into the cage in the same thing, the same format as I talked about before. As it grows, it will come over to the top. You can still have room in these large square openings to actually address any issues you have with tomatoes. You can pick the fruit. You can look at the scout for disease. You can trim branching in it if you need to. Again, it's one great way of staking a tomato. Here is another way of actually staking tomatoes, and we're going to call this the Florida weave. And what it is, you'll have a row of tomatoes planted in your garden, and again, we got to support those leaves and that fruit and keep it off the ground. So we go through and drive in posts all along the row. And then what we do is take this jute that I talked about earlier, and we cut a few strands. And what we're going to go through and do is start tying them here at the base of each of these stakes. And then I'm going to loop around the plant, lightly loop around it. I'm going to come around this stake, go around it. Again, we're weaving through this. Again, I'm coming to this plant here at the base. I'm going to loop around it. And then once I get to the end stake, I'm going to tie it. So that's one string. As the tomatoes keep growing up, you'll still have to keep continuing doing this. So all we do is weave this jute string through here. And again, this tomato's up here this far. I'm going to go ahead and tie another one here, a little bit up from it. And you base this on the height of your tomato. I'm going to loop around, catch that tomato. I'm going to loop around this stake, weave around it. I'm going to come over to this tomato here and do the same thing and tie it to this stake. And the great thing about this is as these continue to grow, We're going to keep adding string to this and weaving it around these stakes and these tomatoes. So this will support those tomato plants as they continue to grow up. All right, the last way we're going to talk about staking tomatoes is we have them growing in the ground and we have them along a row. All we need to do is go ahead and buy these tomato stakes, stake it in, pound it into the ground right beside the tomato plant. And as the tomato plant continues to grow, it's going to support it. So as it continues to grow, we're going to take this jute I talked about, biodegradable. It can be anything soft so it doesn't scar up the cambium on the tomato plant. But we're just going to go through here and tie the tomato to the stake, a little bit loose because that stem's going to get a little bit thicker as we do it. And then as the tomato plant continues to grow up this stake, we're just going to continue to tie it to the stake. And again, the reason for this is we're trying to keep the leaves and the fruit off the ground because that's going to cause rotting and disease. So again, that concludes our tomato staking ways of doing it today.